What's up guys? Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do a hard mode Zuk, and I'm going to give you guys a few tips and pointers so you guys can get your first kill. So before we start, I kind of want to show off this rock that I'm standing next to right here. So this rock is really good for luring all of the waves pretty much. Besides the Jad waves, I use this rock for like every other wave. So you can see Zuk is right there, and then I'm on this rock that is directly northwest of him. And where I'm standing right now, this will lure everything from this side of the arena because they all get stuck behind this like spike here. And then if you go right here, everything that's over here will get lured and it won't be able to attack you because it gets stuck behind that same spike from the other side. And these are pretty much the two lures that I like to use for just about every wave. Sometimes I will go over to this rock over here if there's like a bad lava wall, but for the most part I do everything with that other rock. So learn how to use this rock over here because it will make your life a lot easier. So first off, the armor that you're going to need is going to be magic tank armor. I would highly suggest using magic for this. It's just so much easier, so much less of a hassle. And you can use any of these armors from Ganodermic all the way up to Crypt Bloom. I personally use Octave for the devotion resets, but Crypt Bloom is really good here as well. I would really use the Cinderbane gloves here. Since you're using tank armor, your DPS is a little bit low, so the Cinderbanes will help pick up some of the slack by just killing targets a little bit faster. And then I also find the Igneous Zuk cape for Mage is insane. The Omni power that this cape gives you is crazy, and if you can greater chain it onto a bunch of targets, it'll usually wipe out a significant amount of their HP. So next up is going to be some of the key supplies and abilities and all of that I would highly suggest using. First off is Greater Chain. Greater Chain is super good here. If you don't have Greater Chain, it's going to make your kills a lot slower, and it's just not as enjoyable of an experience. I would definitely get Greater Chain, especially if you're not super great at PVMing. Greater Chain will help kind of ease the pain that is that first challenge. Next up is going to be an Obsidian helmet. The Obsidian helmet's really nice. It gives you 9% damage reduction here, and it also counts as magic tank armor. So it works with Animate Dead to give you a little bit extra damage reduction. So the amount of damage reduction this gives you is probably like 10 or 11%, which is pretty good. Another thing is going to be the Ogre Flask Saltwater. This makes you have infinite run energy for like 20 minutes, and on the last phase, if you're not doing it very fast and you run out of run energy, it's going to be bad. Usually you just kind of die. Next up, Greater Concentrated Blast, and dual wields and a 2H just kind of goes in with that. I would definitely have dual wields and a 2H for this, or at least a wand and a shield, or a defender. But you definitely are going to want to get Greater Concentrated Blast damage if you have it, because this ability is really strong. Next up is Luck of the Dwarves. The drop rate here is pretty good, and since the drop rate is good, the Luck of the Dwarves makes it even better. And then lastly is the Combat Dummy. So you use this to Greater Chain and Omni Power on the first challenge, and it'll get all of the guys low enough where you can really easily kill them and complete the challenge without really even trying. What's up guys, I'm coming in after this video has pretty much been created, but I want to talk about this Obsidian Mage helmet a little bit because this item is 100% worth using. It is super strong. So if you wear the entire set of Obsidian armor and go to the Fight Cauldron, you donate Tokel into this coffer, and every 15,000 Tokel will give you a 20-minute buff, which gives it an additional 10% damage reduction. So you donate into this coffer here, and it'll give you the buff for 15,000 Tokel for 20 minutes. And you can stack that up to a 1-hour buff, so it's a lot more convenient to use. But it makes this helmet insane. It gives you 19% damage reduction, plus it still counts as tank armor. And it also gives you 10% accuracy, which is really nice against the Majors and the Jads. So this is 100% worth using. Another thing is the Tokel Ring gives you 10% more damage on everything except Zuk. So this can be a really cheap ring you can use that's also really strong. Another thing I want to say about Hardmode Zuk is it is crazy money per hour. So I got pretty lucky here. I have 115 hard modes, 100 normal modes, but my collection log is insane. Like I almost have 2 full swords, 3 magma tempests, and 5 scriptures. I mean, the money here is insane, but even the chest, I'm gonna put that screenshot up. The chest is insane, you get crazy normal loot, and it is just wild. So like if you need money and you can do 2 of these an hour, I would 100% suggest doing either this or something like Carapac. So that is all I wanted to say. I just wanted to get those in here because I think it's important to tell you guys how good this mage helmet is. It is insane. So you guys can see my gear and inventory that I have right here. The first thing I really want to point out is if you have Greater Chain, a roaming switch is really important. It makes the first checkpoint really easy because you just Greater Chain off of a combat dummy, like I was saying before. And you can also use it in the waves, especially the melee waves, to chain to a bunch of targets as well. So roaming is really strong here with Greater Chain. Next up is going to be a tier 90 shield with Turtling 4. This makes the third challenge really easy as well, because you just barricade and it'll completely deal with the challenge for you. Next up is going to be Enhanced Devoted 4 and Devoted 4. So these 2 perks, when paired together, they can activate back to back, but normally if you just have one of them, there's a cooldown between it activating and it being able to activate again. But that's only for that specific version of the perk. So if you have both, one can activate and then the other can activate for the next hit. So having both of these perks will save you a lot of food and it'll make you take a lot less damage. I would definitely have both of these perks on your gear. As far as a god book goes, I'd use a Book of Wen. Camping a Grim for this is only really cost effective if you're doing really fast kills. So I think a Wen book is perfectly fine. I have a Defender on here. This is my planted feet switch, but I also use it to like res hits and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice to have it as a dual purpose item. And now moving to my inventory, you can see I have my standard stuff, Vuln Bombs. I have, my overloads, all that stuff. And then I also have Bladed Dive Switch and the Combat Dummy. And then what's next to that Combat Dummy is a Primal Feast. If you're learning to do this on a Ripper Demon or a Calgarian Demon, I would definitely bring a Primal Feast, especially if you're just learning on a Ripper or something. I basically bring this just in case something goes wrong and I take a bunch of damage. I have some like safety food. So these items are really good to use for if something goes wrong, and I would definitely look into them, at least for your first couple of runs. So I'm going to talk over this Hardmode Zuk Kill. So for the first 3 waves, I don't really have a whole lot to say. They're just your melee waves. All I would really tell you is just AoE these waves, and then for that 3rd wave, you can go into the corner of the L Rock, and it'll lure the big melee guys. Another tip that I have for you is play with game sounds on, or at least voiceovers. It helps deal with the firewalls or lava walls or whatever a little bit easier, because you don't have to be looking at your chat box or at Zuk to know when they're going to come, because he'll say something. He'll say like the skies burn. So that's a tip that I would have for just in general, like make sure you're playing with that on, because it'll make your life a lot easier. So I made these little diagrams to help with the Igneous Waves. You can see the white lines on the floor here are the tile lines of where the lure spots are. So anything that's on this side of this line here will get lured from behind this rock. So once you're standing on this side of the line, this ranger will start to lure. So that will kind of show the timing for like how long it takes to get him to lure to where you kill the meleeer. So what I like to first do is start in the green square that I have here. and throw a Vuln Bomb where the melee spawns, and then immediately asphyxiate it or use some kind of stun on it, and then walk a Combust over to these squares over here. So you can start luring the Ranger right away. And then once you get there, you could use like some strong basics, wild magic, or your asphyxiate, whatever strong thresholds, because you want to kill the Igneous or get it pretty close to dying by the time the other two Rangers and this third one get to you and start attacking you. So once you are done killing the melee and you are luring the Ranger, you should go over to this tile here, because the melee over here will get stuck behind this little rock, and then everything else will lure directly to you, and you can greater chain to all three of the Rangers and then Omni Power or something like Wild Magic. And if you don't have greater chain, you can just focus on the Igneous Ranger. But the greater chain Omni can give you a lot of HP back if you get the Soul Split, and it just does a lot of damage because sometimes you can extend your Diva on the other Rangers, which is really important. Once you kill the Igneous Ranger, you will bladed dive from like kind of this tile here, but you also want to extend your Devo right before you kill the Ranger. So then you have the most time with the Devo up to deal with like luring around the mage back here, which I will show you here in a sec. So this is the Igneous Mage, and you can see where we came from before with the bladed dive over on this green line. And as soon as you're done bladed diving, you immediately want to follow this green path and get to this one tile that's 1 square away from the Igneous Mage. This tile has this little spike behind you, so the Rangers can't hit you in the side. And it's also directly behind the Mage, so all of the meleeers and these two Magers over here, they will get lured and can't attack you either. So you're in a pretty safe square when you make it to this tile. So that's definitely where you should be standing. And your rotation should look a little something like this. Like use a strong threshold, some strong basics, and then when it's at about 20,000 HP, hit it with a tsunami. And you want a tsunami then because as soon as you kill the mage, you want to surge bladed dive down these tiles so you can get to Zuk and immediately sunshine and hit the button to kill all of these guys before they start attacking you. But you'll probably have to deal with a flame wall during this part of the Igneous Wave, and that usually looks something like this. So when the flame wall comes in at this angle, move over to this green square, and you should be able to kill the last few hits of the mage from this square, and then you just do the bladed dive surge out and get to Zuk. So that's how I like to do the Igneous Wave. We're just gonna run it and see what it looks like. So now that we are at Zuk in his chair, I'm going to have 2 rotations up on screen. The first line of these rotations is what you should do before you hit the button, and then after you hit the button is what you should use after that. And now obviously you might need to use like a few more abilities after that, and this is just how you should start the rotation. But these rotations work really well if you have the Fractured Staff or without the Fractured Staff. So I would try to get used to doing a rotation that looks a little something like this, so you can complete Zuk in his chair in 1 cycle, and then still have enough left to deal with the challenge afterwards. So speaking of the first challenge, I like to place my dummy as soon as your character gets dragged. Once he's been dragged to the center and you drop the dummy, it's in a perfect position to greater chain off of. So then I like to run back into my sun, greater chain off the dummy, and then chain the Omni Power to all 5 targets. This will get them all low enough to where you can easily kill them without having to do much else. So after that first challenge is going to be your first Jad wave. Now for this wave, you just start it by the L rock and the Jad will get lured behind that little wall up there you can see. And then all of the Rangers spawn next to the L rock and the meleeers will lure to the L rock. So you can stand by this L rock and kill all of the mobs before dealing with the Jad, which makes this wave really easy. If you're not standing here, the Jad might attack you and then you're dealing with like all these different styles of attacks with a Jad, which is not fun. So after you kill all of the mobs, run over and kill the Jad, and then you're on to your 2 Ranger waves. So you can see I start the Ranger waves by the L-Rock, and I deal with the 2 birds and the mage, and then I just kill all of the rangers while trying to extend my Devo as much as possible. And you can see that big meleeer is lured at the top of the screen. There's usually going to be one of the big meleeers up at that location for pretty much every wave, and those meleeers are really good to soul split off of once you've dealt with the rest of the things in the wave, just to get some free HP back. But as you can see, I just use the 2 different lures on the L-Rock to safe spot one set of the rangers while I deal with the other set, and then after I'm done dealing with that set of rangers, I go back and kill the other ones. And that's pretty much how both of these phases work, both of these waves work, is you just kill the off-styles, and then you lure the rangers, extend your devos off of them, and then soul split on the meleeer. So for the second challenge, all you have to do is stand in the sunshine that's left over from Zuk, throw a Vuln Bomb on the Ket, and then Omnipower him and then finish him off with like a G-Staff or a Wild Magic or something like that. That's all you have to do to deal with this challenge. And then after that, you want to go to this rock here, you can see, because this will lure both of the Jads and allow you to deal with the birds, the meleeers, some of the majors, before you really go into have to kill the Jad. So as soon as you kill the last Jad, you want to be in the L-Rock for the Mage Waves. So you can see you want to kill the bird and then that first Ranger, and it helps a lot to sun here. And you see how I'm standing behind the geyser? It'll lure both that Ranger and the other Majors, so you can easily deal with them. And then you have the second Mage Wave, and that's a lot like the first one. You want to kill the Ranger that spawns, and then you deal with the Majors and extend your Devo on them as much as you can. These waves take a little bit of practice, and you'll probably use a bunch of food your first couple times on these waves. But once you get the hang of it and how to extend your Devo, it's not too bad. One tip that I have is always start these with the Sunshine. It makes them so much easier because you're doing way more damage, and you don't have to deal with the monsters for as long. You just kind of kill the important ones right off the bat, and then you're left with a bunch of trashy ones that are no big deal. And then after this, you just have another Igneous Wave. The third challenge, all you do is barricade that. I shouldn't have to explain too much about that, just barricade with the tier 90 shield, and then you're onto the triple Jad. So for the triple Jad, you just start it in the same Jad spot, and you can see the only one that can attack you here is the one in the center, and the other two will get lured, and then you can easily go to the one that's on the northeast, kill that one, and then you go to the northwest one. And then you have Hurricane. So Hurricane from the start, I like to stand in the center, and this lets you surge to Hurricane no matter which side he spawns on. First, Hurricane will shoot a little ball at you, which you just walk away from, but then you will get a message that says he's bombarding you above your character. Once you get this message, walk 3 squares, either north, south, or east and west in one of those cardinal directions, and it will completely avoid this mechanic and make it really easy to deal with. The only thing that's an issue is if you get a lava wall at the same time as this, it'll require a little bit more practice to deal with both of those at the same time, kind of knowing where you need to stand. But your rotation on Harakin is going to be a little challenging without a fractured staff. Like getting him in one cycle is nearly impossible without a fractured staff. What you can do though is just Sun Apot, Tsunami, and then use strong abilities like Omnipower, Wild Magic, Asphyxiate is good, and then finish it by just spamming G-Staffs and things like D-Breath and Sonic Wave. Any of these really strong abilities that can hit through his damage soak. So after you deal with Harakin, you have to fight Zuk. Now this is the final challenge. It's not too bad, but it does take a little bit of practice. So immediately during Zuk's first rotation, his first attack is going to be the Mage Bleed. So all you do here is Freedom that first attack. He says you will break beneath me when this happens. And all you have to do is Freedom. Really easy. The next attack that Zuk does is the attack where he says Suffer. And all you do is Surge and then Surge back to where you originally came from. And then after this attack, he will slam his sword on the ground and have all these little eruptions appear under your feet. You want to do your best to avoid these eruptions. The longer you stand in them, the more magic bleed it applies to you. And it also does typeless damage for standing in them. It's completely random where these spawn, so sometimes there's not much you can do to avoid it. But the magic bleed that this gives you can be a little bit of an issue if you don't have Freedom back yet. So after the eruptions, Zuk will do an attack called Be Gone, which is where he drops a ball on your head. And all you have to do is res the ball, but like I said, if you have that magic bleed that's still happening, you have to do it tick perfect. But if there's no bleed, it's pretty easy to res it. And then you have a few more attacks to deal with, and then he goes into the Pie phase. Now, the Pie phase isn't difficult, but your DPS has to be high enough to deal with the challenge, which isn't hard at all. So all you do for the first melee Igneous is hit him with like an Asphyxiate or a Deep Impact Wild Magic, one of the two. And then that plus a few basics will be enough to deal with him. And now stand close to Zuk and you can bladed dive directly from like right next to Zuk into the next quadrant. So you don't have to do any like bladed dive surge at the same time or anything like that. So for the Ranger, just Asphyxiate or Wild Magic, whichever one you have available, and that plus a few basics should be enough to kill the Ranger. And then you go on to the Mage. So for the Mage, I like to stand in his shield, use 2 attacks, and then walk close to Zuk and use Sunshine. And then you finish off that Major in your Sunshine, and then it's basically a repeat of the first phase on Zuk. So you just keep doing that until you get Zuk to 100k. This will take a little bit of practice and should take you probably 3 to 4 cycles, depending on your gear. Maybe 5 if your gear is really low. But after you get him to 100k, it's really easy. It's just a pillar. If you don't have the best gear, you probably want to use the salt water flask, so you have infinite run energy. But if you can do this fast enough, you don't need to deal with any sort of run energy drain. You should kill it before you're at 0% anyway. All you do for this is you kill the pillar, and then you res the first ball that it throws at you, and then you kill the pillar again, and then you reflect, and you just repeat that until the entire kill is done. And just like that, you have your first hard mode Zuk kill. Congratulations on the easy Igneous Zuk cape. So that is Hardmode Zuk. Hopefully this video helps some of you guys out. And if you liked the video, drop a like and let me know if you want to see any other boss guides or AFKing guides. See you guys in the next one.